My name is Erek Slater. I'm a Chicago Transit Authority bus driver, a bus operator for over 10 years. I'm also a union steward and an executive board member for the Amalgamated Transit Union Local 241. Behind me is the bus garage. I've worked for about 10 years. My coworkers are going in and out now on the morning rush hour is just finishing. I'd like to say a few things about my coworkers. About 600 of us bus operators work here. It goes up and down based upon attrition, but about 600 of us, and then there's about 100 maintenance workers, clerical workers, and others. But really, that's this building here, and it goes back maybe a quarter of a mile into the maintenance area, the servicers, etc. This building by itself is really enough public transportation to run most cities in North America. So you're seeing bus drivers coming in. They had just pulled out, most likely, the bus from the garage early in the morning, 4 or 5 o'clock. And now they're pulling the bus back into the garage, and it's going to sit in the garage there until the evening rush hour. So we have, several hundred buses here in the garage, and almost all of them are emptied out in the morning rush hour. And then they come back in, and almost all of them are packed back in. Only a few buses are left on the street during the middle of the day because there's not as many people going to work and to school, etc. So we have a long unpaid break in between. So we're paid for the morning rush hour and we're paid for the evening rush hour. We have this long, sometimes 7 hours. And many of the workers here, we're on the north side of Chicago, but many of the workers live on the south side or west side of Chicago and have an hour or 2 hour commute. So usually what we do is we sit in our car. If you can see the parking lot there, and there'll be dozens of workers about now, it's about 10, 11, 12 o'clock, will stay for several hours here in their car to try to stay warm, maybe get some sleep, and then they'll come back in. And so the day is really long. It contractually 13 hours, but oftentimes the employer can get around that with their legal team. And we're here 13, 14, 15 hours a day, and then we have to go back home. Again, hour, 2 hour commute, and then come back. So this is one of the major problems we have. I'm so very impressed with my coworkers. We move these buses. You probably just saw a few of the articulated buses. We bring a lot of, especially office workers, but also a lot of the working class to workplaces, and like I said, the northeast corridor of Chicago. And we bring a lot of these express buses to the loop, and they're packed with people, 120 human lives in our hands, and we do an amazing job. There's extremely small amount of any kind of accidents or injuries, and we do it and you don't even notice because we're so well trained. We've been doing this for years. And we deal with all the elements. It's cold now. Chicago has a very bitter winter at times and a very extreme heat in the summer times. And we deal with all those problems. And we come back to the garage and we're here for much of our life. So I'm so very proud to have represented, to defend, and to organize the 600 families here in North Park Garage, and also as an executive board member to help to turn the union, which is about 10,000 families, towards the working class. It's been quite a battle this year. I was elected 2 years ago to be the executive board member and union steward for this bus garage here behind me, North Park Bus Garage. About a year in, immediately it was a war with management, and also, unfortunately, some of the union bureaucrats on top of the union, who have since been removed from office by election. But I'll get back to that in a moment. The basic thing is immediately we had a class confrontational approach and an organizational approach of coworkers. And we weren't going to make any deals with management. We weren't going to go behind workers' back. And management wasn't used to this. Our union has unfortunately been lulled to sleep for several generations. And so I came in as a significantly different figure as an executive board member. I was removed from office for several weeks, and then later on management was able to try to use the discipline procedures as me as a bus operator to fire me as a bus operator. They did that by saying that I was insubordinate when I was being approached by a coworker and asked a question about the contract. I then gave a cease and desist order to management to stop breaking the contract. And then the next day or the day after, I was removed from service as a bus operator, my 10 years as a bus operator, and fired shortly thereafter. Now, immediately when this happened, we went to battle, as we know how in the social justice communities, in the working class struggles of 100, 200 years. You make it public, you make it broad, and you try to build consciousness. So in every step, we were trying to encourage coworkers to participate in other sections of the labor movement. Immediately, when we found out about this, we of course requested the union to fight to stop this. This was a direct attack against the union. It was the attempt by management to remove a worker's elected representative. It was taking away our rights to vote for who will be representing us. And unfortunately, the union officials here locally and also nationally were not interested in participating in this. They felt that they would do what was normally done, and unfortunately management also saw this as normal and expected this, is they thought we would write a written grievance and go through a lengthy process of years, perhaps never, to return my job back and bring me back to work. So immediately we raised the alarm. We actually had a meeting of activists and unionists, union leaders in that McDonald's block away. And we got on the phone, conference calls with organizations around the city, and said we need to have a press conference at the Chicago Transit Authority headquarters. We need to get community allies, labor unionists. We then got dozens, it was literally dozens of workers from this garage that called the president of our union and to say, President, come and defend Erek personally. Make sure you make it clear that you're attacking, that CTA is attacking the entire union and the entire union movement. For whatever reason, he refused. We also sent formal letters to the International Union, making it clear what the case was. We had some legal help. They helped us write the documents. Again, there was no response. They were content with letting this lengthy process occur. So some workers were calling for a strike, asking for the union to send a 5-day letter demanding that Mr. Slater was brought back to work and not harmed, and that the union was not harmed, or else we would strike. Now, the union officials were in no mood for anything like that, so they let things go as they pleased. However, we did not. So one of the first things we did was we had on the day of my termination, all of the top officers except for the president came to defend me. They knew what this was about. They knew this was an attack on the union. With the first vice president, second vice president, third vice president, my union steward here at this garage, and myself, as well as the vice president of our sister local 308 of the rails for the Chicago Transit Authority, came to defend, and they did. Not only did they defend in a court, in a hearing, but they also, several of them, came and spoke to the media. Now, we had a great moment when we decided to go inside the Chicago Transit Authority headquarters, and they confronted us saying that we couldn't go in, but they backed off and they allowed us to have this press conference. And I was so very impressed. Several coworkers in uniform, in Chicago Transit Authority uniform, spoke to the press on my behalf and saying that this was an injustice. And that gave some confidence to the union officials to speak up, and they did. And then now this video went viral. 10,000 hits, 15,000 hits from the different videos that came out. Excitement from all around the workers in both unions. Finally, we're fighting back. Finally, we're making this public. And so, sure enough, later that day, after that press conference, they fired me. And they said, and we asked, why was he insubordinate? Right? The vice president of our union said to the management, how was he insubordinate? And they said it was because he said, cease and desist. So very explicitly, in the interview itself, they said the reason why we're firing Mr. Slater is because he's a union official, and we don't want him to be standing up for his coworkers. We want him just to do what he's told. So immediately we started making every hour, every day, an organizing opportunity. So I was off the bus here. I was normally driving a bus 4 days a week in addition to my executive board but now I could spend this time as a full-time organizer. So we said we're going to make them pay for this injustice by allowing me to do full-time work. So, however, they said that I couldn't go on the property. They said that it was illegal for me, and they had police on the property stationed here to remove me from the premise. Several times I was removed, many times I was threatened. The union officials in our executive board meeting had the police come and remove me at least once, and several other board members. Literally, the police in our board meeting interfering drastically inappropriate for the union movement to do that on unjust grounds. But in the garage, it was a battle to be physically in here. We were able to win 1 day a week for the discipline hearings I was required to defend workers for every Thursday. But then, as soon as those hearings were done, these defensive hearings, they ordered me out and they called the police to have me removed. Weeks went by, we had another press conference. We had a major demonstration. Months went by, we had a demonstration with the Chicago Teachers Union leading a 1-day strike that had some parts of a general strike. The Fight for 15 movement, and some of the workers at McDonald's and others were on strike as well, which we actually was on strike at the location just down the street. So a demonstration of 100 or more, mostly immigrant workers, came to support me and the workers of Chicago Transit Authority in our struggle right in front of this work location. They were scared. They had all the cops out here and everything, thought we were going to stop this entrance here, which we could have, and we may in the future if we have to. These buses provide so much public service. That's what they were really afraid of. And that was the beginning of making it clear to the employer. They make this illegal action by removing an elected executive board member from the union. Removing the union from the property would actually be worse for them, because we would go public, and we did. Because we had some time, I was on my phone helping workers, and I'd go to the McDonald's or other locations to help them when they wouldn't let me on property, but I was still doing the work of an executive board member. I was still going to the executive board meetings. I was still going to the mass membership meetings. All the work that I was supposed to do, they weren't able to stop any of it except for me physically on the property. During that time, we got all the support from all over North America, literally hundreds, perhaps over 1,000 statements of support from unions. But one of the biggest things that happened was I was invited to go internationally to a conference against privatization in Brazil. And this was transit workers all around the Americas, Africa, Europe that came. Some of the fighters in each of these countries and regions came to discuss how to push back against the privatization of public transportation and privatization more generally. And this was a great opportunity. They had a resolution and signed it on supporting my case. And I made many allies there. We learned so much about the strike in 2014 of the transit workers in Sao Paulo. We also went to Japan and Korea. And the transit workers there invited me again, partially because of this termination case became so famous. They wanted to hear the story all the way over in Japan, and we did. We gave speeches and solidarity messages in Japan, the transit workers, and then in Korea, while they were in the middle of major demonstrations to overcome administration that was putting down harsh labor laws and cutting the necessity of the working class. And eventually that movement was able to win. So the Chicago Transit Authority, the city administration, made the conscious choice to legally fire me as an executive board member. So we went public, we went worldwide really. We had statements of support, pictures of support, all the way from France, Japan, Korea, Brazil, Canada, all over North America, many, many unions. And then they fired me and they made me into a full-time organizer, which was great, right? Every hour, every minute, every day that they had me fired, not only would they have to pay me back and my family, which they are doing because it's been shown in court that they illegally fired me, but also we got to go all over the world to spread the message of solidarity and talk about the case. So on balance, what has happened this past year has certainly been an open war, both unfortunately with the top union officials in our union who have just this past week been voted out of office. So I think that's a victory for the working class. that if union officials openly attack their own union and openly side with management, then they should be voted out of office. And we should be getting elected leaders that are 100% on the side of the workers and the members of their union. And that's a very positive thing, one of the biggest things perhaps. But other things on balance, certainly my family was harmed during this time. We had to make sure we had our finances right. It was a 10-month-long battle. Both the union and the Chicago Transit Authority refused to pay me any of the monies that it was owed to me for the work that I was doing. However, we won through the arbitration, through under a ruling, not only bringing me back to work with all seniority, but also all monies that would have been paid for that entire time. Another victory just happened last week. We had an election for my position and all the positions of the union. Again, I was the executive board member for this garage behind me, for the 600 workers behind me, and we re-won re-election, even though 3 people were running against me. Overwhelmingly, in the first ballot, we won. So what does this case show? It shows that you can act as a principled unionist. You don't have to make backroom deals with management. You can be 100% on the side of the workers and fight. Yes, they'll come after us, but we can win. We can win by making it public, by getting workers involved, and going all the way internationally, that we will get support publicly, we will get support internationally, and we can win.